Welcome to the Upshot, Multi-World Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I'm the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Josh Mansfield on this Thursday, January 25th. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Appreciate you listening every single week. Give us a like and a review or whatever it is, wherever you're listening. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. Over on podcast platforms, maybe hit the 5 stars. We appreciate it. It helps more people find the show. Josh, it's time for a little mailbag today. We haven't done a mailbag show in like 3 months or something.
It's been a while. Yes. So, I'm excited. We got a lot of good mail.
We do. Varied topics. We're not going to like hit the hobby horses here. There's not going to be any, make shrink basket stuff. We're not talking about MPO Player of the Year ever again. So, Josh, I'll let you grab the first one.
All right, so we take, obviously, mail from our emails, that we get lots of great emails, but we also love to get our Discord for our subscribers only. That is definitely the best way if you want to make sure to get your questions on the show. So I want to start, though, with something a little more casual. Jake asks, Charlie, how'd you run at the Backgammon tourney? He doesn't play, he's just a big Charlie fan. I asked you about this, so I know the answer, but I want all the listeners to be able to hear, too.
Yeah, I haven't talked about it on the show. So the way a backgammon tournament works is that there's like a main tournament, and they have various divisions of the main tournament. Think like a disc golf tournament. And then there's side games. Okay? So there's lots of side events. So there's enough time across the course of 3 or 4 days. This tournament started on Thursday night for me and ended on Sunday late, like evening. So there's plenty of time to play both the main games and the side events. So it's like a common thing to do both of them. I entered the intermediate division, which is the second highest. The open division at the New York tournament is like, I'm just not there yet. I'm not good enough. Like there were like probably 10 top 50 players in the world in the open division.
Wow. Well, I mean, New York. I mean, that makes sense.
It's the biggest tournament in the U.S. So this is it's not maybe quite the most prestigious, but it's close. And it is the biggest, and it's getting bigger. So still, the intermediate division is very good. And so I won my first match, and then I got my ass kicked. The good news is, in the side events, I did well. So let me lean over here 1 second.
Okay, all right.
This is my trophy.
Hey, look at that.
Kind of hard to see on the camera here, but this is my...
Is that a Statue of Liberty?
That's a Statue of Liberty inside of this like glass trophy. I was the $20 Blitz winner. So I entered a tournament called a Blitz. You play 5-point matches. You have to win a bracket of 8 people. Okay. If you win the bracket, you win $60. And you're entered into the playoffs.
Great.
Okay. So I won my bracket. Got entered into the playoffs. I don't remember how many people were in the playoff bracket. I think it was like 24 or something like that. So then I won that bracket. And I won like 1,200 on that. And then across the course of various other things, I won a little mini Blitz tournament. I won about $650 in that. And I finished second in a tournament to win a new backgammon board, which I had just gotten a backgammon board for Christmas, so I didn't really need a new backgammon board. And instead, I won $500 for finishing second. So all told, after all my, hedging and entry fees, I won about $2,000 and a sweet trophy. So it went pretty well. I was on a crazy heater, Josh. I won like at one point on Saturday, I think I won like 15 matches in a row.
Oh my gosh!
Which backgammon, like, that doesn't really happen. Like, the dice have to be in your favor, and they were for me.
I say there is an element of luck. I mean, I'm sure it's very skill based, and I while I enjoy backgammon casually, I'm sure I'm nowhere near how you play it, but there is an element of luck, and if someone rolls a lot of double sixes,
I played 2 really prominent players. For anybody who is a backgammon fan, you'll probably know the names. I played Phil Simborg, who's like, he's like the what's the best comp? The Nate Sexton of backgammon commentary.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So like he's a very good pro and he's a prominent commentator. I played him in a 1-point match, which is basically like coin flip, and I beat him. But it's not because I'm better than him. It's a 1-point match. So basically, the way backgammon is, you more time. Like longer matches means that the better player tends to win more often because there's more time for decisions to accumulate in their favor and dice to even out and all that. I also played Ryan Rebello, a really good young player from Canada, who I'd like watched YouTube videos of him playing, and we played a 5-point match, and I beat him.
Let's go!
Yeah,
that's sick. So backgammon doesn't have a timer.
It does. Well, it depends. It depends.
So for these blitz tournaments, are you on a timer?
Blitz games were usually not timed. It's more like keep it moving and but
keep it moving, shorter points.
The like main matches all have timers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
got it.
It's like a countdown for each move, plus then you have usually 2 minutes per point. So it's similar to chess in that way. You use chess timers basically.
Oh, okay. Got it. Very cool. Well, congratulations.
Well, we'll see when the backgammon tournament sponsors a disc golf event. Don't hold your breath, folks. Okay, Josh, let's keep it rolling here. We haven't touched on this yet. It has been bubbling a little bit on social media. The UDisc price increase. So they bumped it up for UDisc Pro from $15 to $30.
Yep.
And Steven asked, there's a ton of debate on this right now. I'm in the camp that $30 annually for that product is a fair price that I'm happy to pay. I find it strange that there's so much heated discussion going on about this. What do you think, Josh?
So I have been a UDisc Pro subscriber since like 2015. And literally every year, my aunt just knows to get me my UDisc Pro subscription for Christmas, and that's all it is.
That's a great gift.
It's a great gift. I love it. I use it more than any gift that anyone else gets me every year. And so, you know, it's when I think about it, I actually don't know what the difference is right now between. I've seen some complaints in terms of that the gap between the pro features and the free account is not worth it. I don't really know what the difference is right now because, like I said, I've used pro for. I'm going on almost a decade of being a UDisc Pro subscriber. Regardless of what is available on the free stuff, I use that app more than any other app for anything disc golf related on my phone, on the computer. I use it when I travel. I look up courses. I plan my route around courses. I check the reviews that are on UDisc. I keep my scores. I compare myself to the leaderboards for those scores. I score all my rounds. I love UDisc. And so even not knowing what the difference between the pro and the free version is, I would pay the $30 to support that app in the same way that Jomez used to be free, but you still had Patreon who would, you know, pay the couple bucks a month at the lowest tier, not for much return, but because it's a product they wanted to support and kind of keep going. And I'm in that same camp with UDisc. And I understand that, you know, a couple of years ago it was only $5 a month and now it's $30 a month. I think
a year.
A year.
Just to
$30
make sure
a month.
Everybody's on the same page.
$30 a month that I'm gonna have to sit down and think about this one. But for $30 a year, I'm looking at less than $3 a month. I will happily pay that for what is my most used disc golf feature of like everything. Yeah, definitely worth it to me.
So this is an interesting thing because if you step back and you think about it rationally, it's like obviously fine to pay $30 a year. And if you think about it in terms of the app world, it feels expensive. Mm-hmm. Now, the UDisc guys will tell you, if we had them on, they would say, well, comparable apps in the outdoor and fitness industry are more than this, right? If you want all trails, it's like 40 or 50 a year. Or I don't know. They sometimes put it on discount. That's like a hiking app. If you want the golf app, you know, whatever. And I'm sure they're right about that. And I'm also sure that they considered that, you know, their costs are going up, right? Mm-hmm. Inflation, they have to have more developers. they have to decide, okay, well, do we want to stay where we are or do we want to raise our prices? And if we raise our prices, people are probably going to be upset. And this already happened like 3 years ago when they raised their prices from, what was it? It was like $4 a year.
It's like $4.99.
It was really cheap. And then they made it 15 and it was like, oh, 15. And then everybody was like, no, it's fine. And now the same thing's happening again. Now, I do think they run into the challenge of the sort of anchor pricing thing that goes on with apps, which is that for the most part, you don't pay more than $5 for an app.
Yep.
So when you're being asked to pay $30 for an app, it feels really prohibitively expensive, even though like rationally that's not that much money, especially if you use UDisc as much as many, disc golf fans do. Especially if you're out there taking stats on your rounds, like, are you seriously going to like buy the new Tour Series disc but not get UDisc? That is just dumb and irrational. I'm sorry. Like you have to step back and think about it for a second, and you'll realize that it makes more sense to spend that $30 on a thing you use every time you go and play versus a disc that you're going to hang on your wall, So but I do think they run the risk of like turning some people away from their premium product. Now, that said, their free version is better than it's ever been. You can keep unlimited scorecards. So if all you want to do is keep score, you used to not be able to keep more than a couple scorecards in the free version. But they have opened that up, which I think is smart. It like prevents competitors from like really being able to come in and try to take their market share. Yeah. And so you can just use unlimited scorecards. So if all you want to do is keep score and you don't care about like the stats or like sharing your results with your friends and stuff like that, then just use the free. And just stop complaining on the internet about it. It's like, you want it, pay for it. You don't want it, it's fine.
Yeah, I completely agree. All right. Hampton asks, over under 0.5 umbrella gates in 2024. Umbrella gates being defined as tournament altering fan interference.
Oh, all right. How many were there in 2023?
I think of two right off the top of my head.
There was the Isaacs drive on hole 1 at Fox where it, ricocheted backboard off the bag that was just like on the OB line. Yep. And then the guy moved the bag after it hit, as if like
we weren't going to see that.
That was so bad. I mean, at least in that case, I can understand the guy's like, no one's ever going to throw it here. It was a strange place for a disc to end up going out of bounds. Like, it was so far and so straight, but you can't leave your bag on the line. What was the second one?
The second one that comes to mind is Anthony Barella hitting the.
Was that this year? Oh my gosh!
And then Drew Gibson making a T-shirt, and then the TD getting mad at Drew Gibson for making a
threatened
t-shirt.
To sue him. Oh man!
So I mean, those aren't technically fans, but like I consider those umbrellas. Okay, right? They're both spotters.
I think any interference from a non-natural object, let's say, like
or non
spotter official fan interference with either the person or something that they are carrying with them. I'm gonna go off the map here. I'm going to take the under.
Wow.
And this is a bold claim, but let me tell you why I take the under.
Okay.
First of all, there's fewer tournaments. Okay, so there's less of an opportunity for something like this to happen.
Sure.
Number two, I just think that things are getting more buttoned down all the time, and there's just less opportunity for something like that to have an impact. And I guess the question is, if somebody's standing way out of bounds in a gallery area and a disc comes in and hits them and like ricochets it back in bounds, that would count, I guess, even though the fan did nothing wrong.
Right.
But I'll still take the under. I'm going to roll the dice. I think the over is the obvious bet, but I just think that there's a decent chance that like with the reduced number of tournaments this year, and it's not like this happened every week.
Right. No.
And there's just fans are not allowed to just kind of be up on the lines as much. And I think the Pro Tour makes pretty steady progress in that area every year.
I agree. The thing is if we talk about fan, I think that there would have to be like a Discord ruling on whether or not that's it's an umbrella gate. Because if the fan zone is inappropriately placed, right?
Such that the people are in where they're supposed to be, but they still cause an interference.
Correct. And it's not like a case of think about like the Holy Shot, right? And like that, where it was like the bleachers at Worlds during that time. Like if someone had thrown out of bounds over there, hypothetically, that could have bumped off somebody and rolled back in. I wouldn't consider that an umbrella gate, right? I think the fans were sufficiently removed from the OB. They were far enough back, and I can see a freak instance where it hits somebody's knee, stands up, and rolls back in. And that's the, hello, welcome to fluke accidents, right? Now, if the TD had put like the fans directly on the line of the OB, then I'm going to call that umbrella gate, right? That's a poor decision by the TD. But both umbrella gates this year were by spotters or volunteers. And I just don't think you're going to get that is not going to be completely wrapped up this year. I said to Hampton on the Discord, and I'll say it here. You want to give me the over on that? I will take it all day.
All right. Let's see. I want to go to... Oh, this I think was an interesting one. As the sport becomes more professional and mainstream-ish, heavy on the ish, will we see pitchers that can't make a living in baseball start trying to become disc golf pros? Is the conversion of arm talent close enough? If it is, when will this start, and will it completely wipe out the current pros, or will it simply add depth? This comes from Andrew.
I think this is an interesting take on a common question that we ask about what would happen if professional athletes just started flooding the sport of disc golf. We talk about that regularly, and that's becoming, I think, as the sport continues to grow, you have people who've played the sport their entire lives, and but still, that this is a really interesting question, and especially I think baseball pitchers are, a good example, but really anybody, I think, I was gonna say, I think like outfielders or anybody who can throw really well in baseball could apply here, right? Here's the issue, and why I think there is a barrier to that happening. The baseball pro, like, we're not going to see the likes of like Dylan Cease coming over and being like, yeah, no, full-time disc golf now. Like this is definitely more lucrative, right? That's not the case. So let's say you get a AAA pitcher, right, who decides to come over. I don't think tournament winnings are enough that even if he came in and was highly competitive in the MPO field, like that level of competitiveness is not necessarily going to translate in enough earnings, which means it has to develop into an endorsement or a sponsorship deal from a manufacturer that is such to then create the kind of income that is necessary to stay. However, if you're a sponsor, I think you're a little bit hesitant on terms of like commitment, what this player looks like, what's their interest, is it just a 1-year thing? Are they going to go back to baseball? Like there's lots of questions around it. Tournament winnings are not enough to make it lucrative, and I think it's going to take a long time before our tournament winnings are enough to really create that incentive. If we had a $1.5 million payout for the winner, I'll revisit this question, but for even $10,000, which is a pretty nice winner's payout right now, I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I think the question is like, are we talking about pitchers who wash out at AAA? No chance. Like they probably make more money playing AAA baseball than they do playing disc golf. Because unless you're winning all the time or finishing top 10 all the time, you're not making much on the Disc Golf Pro Tour.
Right.
So if we're talking about guys who are like single A, high A guys who never really get to the next level, but are like, can throw a 95 mile per hour fastball, I mean, maybe it's just to me, it's really it stretches a little bit what I think where disc golf really is. Like we're not really like rocking the world yet. I know it feels like we are internally, and certainly the sport has made a ton of progress in the last 5 to 10 years, in part because so many more people are playing and all this big influx of money. But we're still like talking about mostly peanuts. And it's not like it's just a direct, step in as someone who can throw hard and succeed. There's a lot more to it than that. So I do think long run, we will see more arm talent find its way into disc golf. And I think the generation of professional players who is on the scene 20 years from now will make today's game look like plumbers and mechanics. Like that's just the nature of sports. But I don't think we're going to suddenly see baseball pros be like, I'm going to disc golf where I can make $1,100 finishing 31st,
Yeah. Well, and I actually think it's more likely that it's like high school kids who are pitchers who also play disc golf recreationally say, I'm just going to go to school wherever I want. And then I might play disc golf. I'm good at it. Like, and I'll try that instead.
And like, I'm like a D1 college pitcher. Baseball player, but I don't think I'm going to make it in the pros.
Yeah.
But I like disc golf.
And I'm going to
commit to getting better at that instead of getting better at baseball.
Yep.
I completely agree.
That's the scenario.
That's much more realistic.
All right, next comes from Kolberg on our Discord. He mentions that in the 2023 fandom survey, they asked a question about favorite tour courses. And if you look at the courses on tour in 2024 for both MPO and FPO, there were 9 courses that got less than 5% of the votes. Pickard Park, Eureka Lake, Glendevere East and West, Emporia Country Club, Nevin Park, Swenson Park, Harvey Pennock, and Mill Ridge. Now, he adds a caveat that nobody put Glendevere East and West as their favorite. So if you combine those two and just say Glendevere in general, that number actually jumped up to above that 5% threshold. So he thinks that Glendevere got split because they have 2 of them on the same property. Fair enough. His question then, which courses should be dropped from the tour and which should be added? And if a really good course with lots of spectators is the best, but we don't necessarily have enough of those courses yet, is it more important to have a bad open course with lots of spectators or a really good wooded course with less spectators and a more isolated location, basically coming to the point that doesn't DGN revenue outweigh revenue or profit from spectators?
Well, let's do a little math. Let's just do a little math.
Okay.
How many people come to a well-attended disc golf pro tour event?
We get 3,500.
That'd be huge. Right? I think that would be like. I think that'd be a monster one. Let's say 2,000. Let's say 2,000.
Okay, 2,000.
Because that's like more of an average. I don't know. I don't know what they're.
I think Worlds was closer to like the 3,500 mark.
That's like top tier stuff, right? USDGC is around 5,000.
Sure.
But let's just say a standard DGPT event. So let's say it's 2,000 people.
Okay.
And what's their average ticket price, you think? $30?
20. What did you say?
30?
30 is good. Yeah.
You average out the cost of the weekend rounds against the cost of the early rounds. I don't know. Let's just say it's 30. That's 60 grand. Okay. So online, you have 50,000 subscribers.
Yep.
And let's say that their average paid price is $8, which is somewhere between the max price you would pay and the 50% off that you would pay.
Yeah. Okay.
So 50,000, right, times $8 is $400,000. Now that's a monthly thing. That's not 1-to-1. But I think the point is it's a significant chunk of money in both cases. But yes, I think it's very obvious that the Pro Tour business, the primary business that they are in, is a streaming service. They are a media company more than anything else. Now, they happen to also control their events, and there's good money to be made at events because not only do you sell them a ticket, you sell them a disc from your pro shop, you sell them food, or vendors are paying you for the right to be there. So there's a lot of money here. You don't want to be at a venue where you can only have 500 people, like when they did Champions Cup, and it was like there were no spectators because they couldn't accommodate anybody. So to get back to the questions here, first of all, I think it's interesting to see this list. Pickard Park, which is Des Moines, Eureka Lake, which of course is one of the courses at Ledgestone. Emporia is DDO, of course. Nevin, which is the Pro Tour Championship. Swenson, that's OTB? I think so. Harvey Penick, which is Austin, and Mill Ridge, which is Nashville, Music City. So a lot of these places aren't great. Pickard Park is the one that's kind of out of place for me. I think that one is a cut above the rest of these courses. But then people are complaining about Nevin. People don't like Nevin. Is that just because it's new, or do they really not like it because that's not a like open golf course? That's a wooded, super wooded track.
They did some weird things with Nevin for this year though, like especially like hole 18 was kind of weird.
Yeah.
So I think it might just be the design that hurt Nevin this year. But I agree with you. Like I think Pickard, Nevin.
It's just, let's be honest, Nevin feels like a course that would be really fun to play, but just isn't that great on camera for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't feel like the natural home of that tournament. It's like a second best because the other course is being renovated.
Yes.
So Hornet's Nest is, people would love to see Hornet's Nest again, I think. To actually specifically answer the question, I think the tour still needs to prioritize high quality courses over pure spectator access. Now, that's a spectrum. It's not like all or nothing. But I think in general, you want to be looking at this list of courses that people don't like and think about how do we either change these courses dramatically enough to make them fun to watch, or how do we get them off of our tour? Yep. Because long run, people aren't going to be interested in tuning into courses that are not fun to watch. And that includes spectating.
The other thing I would add is that there is more value in spectators. Number one, the money, DGN would have to find a way to, because a lot of that spectator money goes to, or some of that spectator money goes to added cash that goes out to pros. So if DGN's like, we're axing any priority for spectators in favor of DGN revenue, then they're going to have to then calculate like how much of that DGN revenue did increase and how much are they going to like push back to tournaments for added cash.
But are people canceling their DGN subscription because they have to watch Harvey Penick Austin tournament?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Now, I think there's a fair question that like, do some people look at those and say, I'm only going to get the month during Worlds, True. And then I'm not going to worry about
True.
it, right? There's just not enough courses or intrigue that I want to watch. So that's the second. You got to track like what you're like, and how do you attribute the course changes to the increase in viewers? That's another very difficult ROI to track. But the final point is, it's so much easier to sell sponsors when you can show them clips with thousands of fans surrounding hole 18. True. And if it's empty and you just literally see four guys walking around the woods,
so true.
And you go to LLB and you're like, hey, look at this cool product we got. They're like, is this a wilderness documentary or is this a professional sport? Right? Like the spectators add an atmosphere and ambiance of professionalism that are critical to selling to sponsors these days. So
look what's not on this list. Winthrop. Winthrop is arguably the worst piece of property that a course is on the professional tour.
Yep.
And yet, it is among many people's favorite courses because they've been very creative with the use of the land. Mm-hmm. They have just simply not cared that it looks ugly on camera, and they have maximized for spectatorship and pomp and circumstance.
Yep.
And it's not to say there aren't some great holes, because there are. But like, and to their credit, they have made positive changes that make it more visually interesting. But the course itself is simply not like a beautiful disc golf course. It's just not. It has ugly stuff all over the place. It has weird hole choices. And yet, together, it works because it's so demanding on the players, and we get to see the best of players because they're asked to do all of the things that you need to do to be a successful disc golfer. And so, there's also the factor that it's been on tour for a very long time. And so people grow to like it even if they don't love it. Mm-hmm. I think that kind of nostalgia for a course will happen over time if it's been on tour for. I mean, remember how many people were like, "Oh, the Memorial, we lose the Memorial." That's a horrible course. It's a clown show. On Terry Miller's coverage of it, you got people walking across the middle of the fairway. Like nobody's missing it anymore.
Yeah. Yep.
So I don't know. I think it's a tough thing, and the overall, the tour is pretty much using the best reasonable disc golf courses that there are out there in the United States on which to play professional tournaments. Because there's not that many gold level courses, and all of the best gold level courses in the U.S. are pretty much being used by the tour. And the ones that aren't are ones that have some like fatal flaw, like they flood, or there's just no room for spectators, or
no cell coverage.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
So I think there's always going to be a worst course on tour, and I would like to see them. I need to see them start to be a little bit more aggressive with some of the junk, though. Like Emporia, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
it's over. This we can't keep going there.
Yep.
Unless they can make something more interesting happen with that property. I'm serious. I get it. Like DD and the money and all that. Like maybe you can't turn that down, but like the fans are telling you, right? The fans are telling you, and it's not just people online. There's nobody going to that tournament anymore.
Yep.
And maybe it'll change this year because they got the AMs back at the same time. But it's not a destination anymore. People want more from their disc golf courses. Okay, let's keep it moving. I want let's talk about this. Steven says, thoughts on a new Pick'em league I'm joining. The way the league will work is that we've got 24 tournaments, 20 elites and 4 majors. For each event, we will pick 10 matchup winners. So you might have like Macbeth versus Wysocki, Eagle versus Simon, Kristen versus Paige, and so on, for you to choose the winners of. You also pick a confidence level number that will be tallied for each correct pick. So you pick the winner and you assign 1 to 10 confidence. The highest points for each event wins the week, and you win $50 off of a $100 buy-in for the week, and then overall points winner at the end of the season gets $1,000. Like it? Don't like it? What do you think?
I like it. I like it. The hesitation that I have is like how the matchups are going to be determined. Right, like that would be, I would want details on before I would personally join it. Otherwise, I think this is a pretty easy way to engage in like this, fantasy disc golf essentially, right? Where you get to pick players, you get to enjoy kind of a structure week to week that creates a season long atmosphere a lot around, rather than just having to stick to a single player. I think it's really interesting. Honestly, that's a league that like I think sounds like one of the best leagues that I personally have heard of. Vis-a-vis fantasy betting on disc golf.
I like the concept because it's really simple to determine the winners each week. Mm-hmm. And you actually have to think about the skills of the players and how they, match up. And then you have to assign how confident you are that somebody's going to outperform somebody else.
Right.
And so there's an actual thinking each week, and it feels a little bit more that like the best prognosticator will win, as opposed to someone who gets lucky by, having the player who gets hot for the year or something. Yes. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like regular disc golf fantasy isn't super appealing to me, but I like this because it would be like something that changes every week, and you can't really get too far behind because, maybe to win the overall, but you could always win the week.
Yes. And it doesn't, like if a player takes a stretch off, right? Like you don't have to balance the fact that Chris Dickerson's not going to play the West Coast Swing. And how do you value him then when you draft, right? Or Simon's missing time in the spring. So how do you value him in a draft?
I'm wondering if we should try to do a mini version of this on the show for every tournament. We can't do 10. I would take way too long. But like we do 3 matchups, assigning 1 to
2
3.
MPO, 2 FPO.
Okay, yeah, all right. 2 and 2.
Yeah.
Assigning 1 to 4 confidence.
Yep.
And then we track.
I'd be down.
Let's see what the people think. Let us know what you think. Would that be a fun change up to the way that we do our picks for the season? We'll still pick winners probably. We're going to make some changes overall to the way that we kind of approach talking about picks and over-unders and doing
Tournament
Purse Watch
previews.
and all of these things,
Yeah.
kind of like some of our recurring segments. Started to feel like it was bogging down the show a little bit, so we might make some changes. But would you enjoy playing along with us in this game? Let us know. Upshot@ultiworld.com. Hit us up in the Discord. We're going to take a quick break. More questions in the mailbag on the other side.
The Upshot is presented by Pound Disc Golf, makers of the best bag in the sport. All of Pound's products are handmade in the United States, guaranteeing perfection in every bag. Backed by their lifetime warranty, Pound bags are built to last a lifetime. And for a limited time, if you buy any deluxe Octohaul, you will get a free Sage and Multicam Overnighter, an $80 value, for free. The Overnighter is Pound's small travel duffel. As the name implies, it's perfect for the single night or weekend excursions. Being the exact same dimensions as the toolbox, the Overnighter can also double as a disc carrier. I use my Overnighter for everything from carry-on luggage for work trips to storage for extra discs and gear for long tournament weekends. I even use my Overnighter as my gym bag in between those weekends away. It's a bag so versatile, it has become a staple both on and off the course. This special will only last as long as stock does, so hurry over to PoundDiscGolf.com and get your free Overnighter today. Special does not apply to custom Octohauls or other colors of Overnighters.
Welcome back to the Upshot. Our mailbag continues. Let's take a couple of quick hitters here out of the break. Josh Hampton asks, will Paige Pierce be a significant factor in the 2024 season?
I'm gonna go yes. And I think significant factor doesn't even have, like, if Paige only played like 5 or 6 events, I still think that's enough for Paige to be a significant factor. The big question is she going to be available and play foil to Kristen on the biggest stages? That to me is how Paige could be a significant factor by only playing 2 or 3 events. If she just played the majors, that makes Paige a significant factor to me, because you want someone who can play foil to Kristen at the majors. There will be storylines around that. That to me, I think, is enough likelihood that I'm going to go yes for Paige. I don't think she's going to be dominant all season, but enough to cause Kristen problems.
I mean, people have kind of gotten a little out over their skis when it comes to Paige Pierce. First of all, Paige's injury was kind of like a freak accident that should not have any impact on her future athletic performance.
Yeah.
So it's not like she hurt her arm. Okay? So that's one. Number 2, can we please remember that Paige Pierce won 5 tournaments in 2022 on tour and then won 2 in 2023. Now, was she as good as Kristen? No. Was she easily the second best player on tour? Yes, she was.
Yes.
Like, I know it's easy to forget about Paige because she wasn't a factor in the second half of last year, and we were talking about Owen and we were talking about Missy, but like, Paige is still the next best player on tour. Like, nothing has happened to change that. What's the case? Like, the case is that she's not quite playing as well as she used to, and that she's distracted now because she's married. I mean, this is the kind of like garbage takes people used to make about Macbeth. Like, I understand, like, people just are obsessed with the number 1 player. And so everyone's like, oh, Kristen, so amazing. And no doubt, I mean, Kristen's been unbelievable. But, you know, Paige still shoots over 1,000 rated tournaments. Like OTB, she shot 1,004 rated and won it. Open at Austin, she won it last year. She won 2 majors in 2022. Like, it's not like she's just a zero who's never winning anymore. Has she been less consistent? Absolutely. Has she been not as good as she was in the past? Definitely. But I think it's worth pointing out that she still finished in the top 10 at most tournaments. Like, after her OTB win, she went 5th, 9th, 7th. Now, that's not quite Paige Piercian in the way that we've gotten used to her playing, but it's still a better resume than just about every other player on tour.
Yeah, and the other thing that's noteworthy, and I think is kind of a part of this, I don't know why, but I feel like disc golf fans, and I'm guilty of this too. We have the collective memory of like a fruit fly. Like we forget so fast, and it's just about what happened last season. Whereas like I hear Denver fans who are like, "Oh man, like we're not that far removed from being the best team in the NFL," and I'm like, "We're almost a decade removed from being the best team in the NFL when we won the Super Bowl." It's very weird to me how fast disc golfers forget compared to other sports.
Now I will say, you look at 2020. Paige Pierce shot better than 990 at a tournament 7 times. 2021, she did it 5 times. 2022, she did it 3 times. 2023, she did it 2 times. Now, it was a shortened season, but the trend is not in the direction that you'd like to see.
Sure.
But I still think that if Paige takes the time to like work out some of the weaknesses in her game and recognize that she has to evolve as a player if she wants to continue to compete with Kristen, who, by the way, she can still outthrow, then she could absolutely have a renaissance in her career. And what are the odds on her being player of the year this year? I mean, if you give me much more than about plus 300, I'm probably going to take it.
She's got to be up there as one of the favorites if she plays full season.
She has to be number 2, I would think, behind Kristen.
Let's hit email from Jeff. I like this one. When I heard about the chess.com partnership with the first DGPT event, I didn't realize what a big deal this was and how huge chess.com had become. As I dive into the chess.com app, I've naturally sought out videos and tutorials on YouTube and noticed something interesting. Your standard chess-related content creators have crazy numbers on YouTube. Gotham Chess, Anna Kramling, Chess Page One, and others routinely have views in the multi-millions, and the typical content creator in disc golf is doing great with around 50K. Even Simon's MVP announcements were only in the 400K range. With that said, I'm not sure what chess.com has planned for the Florida event, but I'll be very curious to watch how disc golf hopefully benefits from the connection.
I'm very curious to see how this plays out and like what kind of activations does this chess.com thing have? Are we going to see big pros there from the chess world? Do we get more visibility on the chess side of things than just it being titled chess.com? But yeah, no doubt. Chess is massive. Chess is absolutely massive.
And chess streaming is just exploded
huge.
During the pandemic and for the past 5 years. Yeah.
It's very cool. Disc golf would love to follow that trajectory. Wouldn't that be cool? Okay. Who do you think will be the Parker Welk of 2024? Asks Hampton. Let me take it first.
Define that for me.
Okay, well, how about Parker Welk himself? Like, I don't know. I think the question is who's gonna come out of nowhere and win a tournament? I think the problem is how could you possibly answer this question? Because literally no one had said Parker Welk's name before he won DDO.
Right.
So like we could just pull a random name out of the bottom 100 to 200 people on the Disc Golf Pro Tour from last year, but I think the whole point is that like it's a completely unknowable thing.
Yeah.
Like if we say a name that we think could win a tour tournament, like by definition, they're not going to be a Parker Welk type.
Right.
I'd also just like to point out that Parker Welk in early December beat Anthony Barella and other top pros at the Big Arm Challenge. And of course, we talked about how he won Shelley Sharp Memorial over him in a playoff with a new bag. He was playing DGA discs at that tournament. Interesting. Parker Welk going to be the Parker Welk of 2024.
Next question comes from Al P. Jackson. He asks, what is the value in signing mid-level pros when you have top-tier talent and popularity? For example, whatever Emerson Keith sells on his Tour Series disc would pale in comparison to putting Calvin or Sexton's name on it. Thoughts, Charlie?
Well, I think a lot of companies are probably sort of thinking about that fact themselves.
Mm-hmm.
What is the value? Well, the value is that you're paying less for them.
Yeah.
And that they still have fans who are willing to buy their disc. And they're there's still a chance that those players can win a tournament and bring you riches as a disc golf manufacturer. I mean, like, it's not like everyone's getting the same deal. So it's like saying, why does an NBA team sign somebody to be on the bench and never really play in games? Well, they gotta have people at practice. Like, it's a bad analogy because it's not like you have to have these players on your team to meaningfully, succeed as a business.
Sure.
But I think that there's, to some extent, like, these players are going to land somewhere. And I think if the price is right, these companies have done the math on this kind of thing. Now, I also think that the recent, tighter market for disc golf has led manufacturers to deprioritize signing these kinds of players. Mm-hmm. And that's why we've seen a lot of people sticking it out or going open bag and not, getting some splashy new deal, because there is no splashy new deal to be had.
Mm-hmm. And
so, to an extent, like, it reflects the marketplace. When everyone's flush with cash, they're like, why not? Let's get the deepest team.
Additionally, here's what I say then. Like you said, they could pop off at any time. Think about who mid-level players were when they first joined the tour, companies signed to their team. I would say that 3 or 4 years ago, Missy Gannon was a mid-level player. I would say 3 or 4 years ago, Kyle Klein was a mid-level player. I could make a pretty extensive list of mid-level players who, when given the support necessary, were able to tour full time and all of a sudden became very, very good players, right? How do you know that Isaac Robinson's going to win 2 majors when he does his first real full year on tour? Those are the questions that you don't know until you get those players on entry level.
Imagine
deals.
if Isaac Robinson was going into free agency at the beginning of last season.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's not getting a top player deal.
No.
And, somebody signs him for cheap, and then boom, he wins 2 majors, and you've, maybe the best ROI on your team in terms of your marketing dollars.
And the other problem is that throwing Calvin's name on every disc, like, there's a limit to, like, there's a group of people who will buy an Emerson Keith fan or disc. There's a group of fans that will buy an Emerson Keith disc. But I think that group is probably larger than the subsection of Calvin fans who will buy every disc with Calvin's name.
I'm not sure I agree with that. Well, I think Innova would probably also not agree with that. And that's why they put him on their second tier team. By the way, Emerson Keith won a tournament this past season.
Yes.
And there's players who are less accomplished than Emerson Keith on their star team. But they're maybe more famous.
Sure.
Also, Emerson Keith's fandom results, not good.
Not good. So maybe Emerson Keith's a poor example there, right? Like, pick a different.
But I get your point. I do get your point. I do think
Right.
there's a saturation effect at some point.
I think that's the point I was making there. I think so as well.
But I mean,
all right,
it's coming out with special edition plastic rock with Calvin's name on it would probably sell. I mean, it's going to sell if you come out with stuff that people want to throw.
But what's the difference between that and like a stock run Halo Rock 3?
I don't know. Maybe not.
I don't think that. And like, you're gonna have to pay Calvin more.
Let's stay on the topic of Innova while we're here.
Okay.
Andy asks, will Innova remain a top disc golf brand to avid players over the next 5, 10, 20 years? Or will they become a Walmart brand that isn't taken seriously by people that are immersed in the sport?
I think it's a fair point that it's not like it's gotten almost like trendy to throw other things, right? Like Innova's seen as like the Rock is like, oh, that's kind of an old disc, right? I don't throw the Rock anymore. But there are still, the problem though with that is that, like, when I think about like the age demographics, and I guess this is right, 5, 10, 20 years. So in 20 years, what's Innova like? I still think that Innova makes quality discs, and there are discs made by Innova that I think are just still some of the best in those categories. The T-Bird is still excellent and is going, and even if it's sold in Dick's Sporting Goods and Walmart's and other, just retail box stores, doesn't it like that will not diminish the staying power. And in fact, I think it's a good product. The difference and the reason it's not a Walmart brand is because it's still a good product. Yes, it's being sold in Walmart's, but it's not Franklin discs, right? Like it is still a good product disc, and thus I think it will have the staying power in 5, 10, and 20 years.
People sleeping hard on Innova right now. I mean,
I think so too.
I get it. Like they didn't make the big splash this offseason, and it doesn't feel like the trendy brand.
Yeah.
MVP takes the cake on the trendy brand department. But like, come on. Like, if you need to buy a driver, what brand are you going to, if you only choose one brand to throw their drivers, what are you picking?
You're picking
Innova. I mean, come on. I mean, sure, people can pretend that they think it's better to go into, I mean, even if you don't feel like you have the arm speed for a destroyer, Wraith. Like, you name it. Like, the Firebird defines the slot that it's in. Every other disc in that slot from other manufacturers is second best. The Destroyer defines the category that it's in. Every other disc from every other manufacturer is second best. And when you have multiple defining discs, you could argue the same thing about the AVR, because Innova literally built the model by which all of these other discs were created. Everybody else stole from them. Okay, so that doesn't go away. Mm-hmm. I mean, I just looked it up. I like to look at these stats. Infinite disc sales 2023. The number 5 and 6 discs sold in terms of popularity were the Innova Wraith and the Innova Destroyer. These are not new discs. These are not hype discs. The Glitch was number 1. Okay, hype new
That's a
disc.
hype disc.
All right,
trendy disc.
Discraft Buzz number 2. Legendary disc, then a couple of Infinite disc brand discs, obviously the only place you can buy them. That's the Alpaca and the Emperor. And then you have the Wraith and the Destroyer. By the way, the Infinite disc made by Innova. Okay, so like,
and
let's
the
pump
like
the brakes on the hate. Because by the way, Halo, there was no Halo before Innova created Halo. And that's now that's like the Kleenex of that look of discs. Oh, I got to get the Halo Latitude 64 disc.
Yep.
Innova created that. Mm-hmm. They're still going to be at the forefront of disc golf for a long time to come. And I don't care what anybody wants to tell me. They are prudent with their spending on free agent disc, players as sponsored players. And I think that has been a wise strategy over the long run. Mm-hmm. It's easy to go big and splash money, and then you might end up in a situation like DD.
Yep. They also literally own probably the second most important major, and that's not going away. Now, one thing I will say, You've got to sell me new discs, not by just Dave Dunapace coming in.
Yeah,
and
the marketing department's ready for a shakeup for sure.
That needs some changes. That's why it feels like your grandpa's brand is because grandpa is on there.
They literally are putting him front and center, which is an interesting choice. I mean, it's kind of funny in a way, but I feel like we need to. Yeah, there's.
It was funny the first time.
Yeah, but I also will say, Innova has lost market share. Clearly has lost market share over the last 5 years.
Yep.
And that competition is good for everybody.
Yeah. All right. Next question then. We're going to do a combo question.
I think it's the last one as well.
I think so. Yeah.
We will continue our mailbag in our Inside the Circle for subscribers only. We've got a bunch of additional great questions, including stuff about PDGA, Tour Series discs, some predictions on first elite event winners for the year, and more. So get yourself a subscription at discgolf.ultiworld.com/subscribe and continue the fun. All right, Josh, last question.
Okay, last question. These are pairs questions. YR from the Discord asks, what 3 storylines for 2024 would be the most interesting? And Resonant Transitions asks, what needs to happen in FPO this year for there to be a compelling narrative? What are the odds of Kristen repeating her level of dominance in 2024?
Yeah, I wanted these questions to be paired because I think the obvious place to begin for compelling storylines is that we have genuine challenge to Kristen.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Nicholas came on here and said, I want to see another Grand Slam sweep. That would be incredible. But it will only be incredible if there are credible challengers to Kristen and not that she just walks everybody again.
Yep.
So that is the starting point for me. Resurgent Paige Pierce. Own continues to level up her game and be competitive. Missy works on the forehand and she gets to the next level. There's some of these young players coming up, pick it up. The Finns clean up the putting. You can imagine all the various ways that we could end up in a situation where it feels like we truly have a competitive FPO field. And it's not like Chris. I don't want to see Kristen fall back. I want to see other players rise to her level.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's one for me. What for you, storylines wise?
I'm going to go back to my prediction because it kind of was a desire for something of this nature, and maybe top storylines would be better than a predictions, but I said that I think MPO is going to clarify into a 2 to 3 player rivalry. That, not to say, and that to me is going to be the most interesting, that there are 3 players who are going to finish inside the top 7 to top 7, top 10 even. And it's those 3 are always there, and one of them is always in contention for the win, even if one of the 3 aren't always winning. I think there's a lot of options of who that could be, but that to me, getting a rivalry again in MPO would just be so important and beneficial for the sport.
I think my third pick is that we get Macbeth back. That we have a truly competitive Paul Macbeth again this year. We missed him a little bit last season.
Yeah.
And much like when Tiger was at the peak of his powers in golf, you really want that icon player to be there and in the hunt in order for the sport to feel its most compelling. And there's something about Macbeth and you want to watch him play when he's at his best. And perhaps another player will really take over that category. I mean, it could be Calvin. If Calvin still really starts killing it. But if it's Calvin and Macbeth and Eagle and Gannon all playing at a really high level, that's going to be more exciting than if Macbeth isn't part of that conversation. So I think, if you're looking for one player that you want to see step up and really find that top form again, for me, it's Macbeth.
Disc golf is better when Macbeth is playing.
Yeah. So let us know what storylines would you like to see. Hit us up, upshot@ultiworld.com. The mailbag will continue inside the circle for our subscribers. So head on over to your podcast app. You can load up your URL. It's in your My Settings if you're an Ultiworld Disc Golf subscriber. And you'll get it right there in your podcast app. And all of our past episodes as well, access to the Discord, all that good stuff. So great day to join as we get ready for the 2024 season. Mailbag continues inside the circle. We'll talk to you next week right here on The Upshot.